Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're reviewing New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, episode 111. Before we get into it, if you haven't seen any of my videos before, I rate everything on a 1 to 5 scale. 1 is the worst, 5 is the best. Let's jump right into it. We start the show off with Ian Riccaboni and Alex Kozlov pretty much announcing what was going to be on the show like they normally do. However, this time we see Kevin Knight come in, and Kevin Knight proceeds to call out the winner of tonight's tag team title match between Aussie Open and JR Kratos and Danny Limelight for a match with him and DKC. I thought that was pretty good. I didn't expect that. I know they've been working a little bit more of these backstage promos into the show, making it more integrated in, giving more storyline into it. I enjoyed it, and I was pleasantly surprised by Kevin Knight's mic skills here. Going from that, we go into our first match of the show. A guy that's had a lot of press during this week, Doc Gallows, going up against Che Cabrera. Gallows, who just recently debuted back on Monday Night Raw, him and Carl Anderson, while still having Carl Anderson being the never openweight champion. So there's been a lot of what's going to happen, what is the relationship between WWE and New Japan. Apparently Anderson plans on working all the way through Wrestle Kingdom for New Japan, and I'm guessing it was part of his WWE deal that would be okay, so they're probably going to do a proper send-off for him, a proper title change. Doc Gallows wasn't mentioned, probably because he's not a champion. I don't know if he's essential to go back to New Japan with Anderson, but he might. I'd assume at some point they'd have to put the Good Brothers back, either to have them kicked out of Bullet Club or to do whatever they're going to do. Do find it interesting that it kind of matches up with comments that Jay White said earlier, and I'm going to get to the match here in a moment. That Jay White said earlier in the year, where he talked about having the Bullet Club in every promotion in America. And if you think about it, technically you've had Bullet Club members in WWE, in Impact, in AEW, in New Japan, in all the other places they've been. So yeah, he was absolutely right. Going back to the match, Che Cabrera, I think this is the first time I've seen him. If it's not, I forgot. And if I've seen him before, he looked okay. I want to see him in there with somebody other than Doc Gallows, and we'll talk about that in a moment, because I feel like he didn't quite get the best of Doc Gallows. Doc Gallows seemed to have phoned this match in a little bit, and that's not a knock on him. I'm a fan of Doc Gallows. I like the Good Brothers. I have liked the Good Brothers for a long time. I liked him before his run in the Good Brothers when he was part of the Straight Edge Society, and I liked him in Aces and Eights. It just really feels like he kind of coasted through this match a bit, more so than what we see normally. Not that it was a bad match, but it was just a kind of middle-of-the-road match. Gallows does pick up the win here. I want to see Cabrera go against somebody else. Maybe a Bad Dude Tito would be a good match for him. See how he matches up with him. I'm going to give this one a 3. Like I said, middle-of-the-road match. Not bad, not really good. Now going from that, we got our Never Strong Tag Team Champions, Openweight. It's a long, convoluted name. The Strong Tag Team Champions of Aussie Open of Mark Davis and Kyle Fletcher going up against JR Kratos and Danny Limelight representing Team Filthy. Again, this was another match. I had high hopes for this match going into it. I thought it was going to be really good, especially with everybody involved. To me, it was a little bit of a letdown. Again, not that it was a bad match per se, but I expected a little better. It felt a little clunky at times. At times, it did feel like it was a really good match. The pacing, to me, seemed a little bit off. It felt really herky-jerky, like there was a lot of let's start up and then boom, stop and start and stop and start and stop. It felt like it never really got off the ground, and there was no real excitement to the match, no real danger in the match. Aussie Open retains the tag titles here. They win the match. I'm giving this one a 3. Like I said, maybe my expectations were higher than they should have been for the match, but when you got the tag champions, you got two guys that have been prominently focused on in New Japan Strong, in Limelight and JR Kratos, and two guys that I know have had better matches in this, and a team that I know has had better matches in this, you kind of have higher expectations. One last thing I do want to say, and I just realized it this week, JR Kratos, it always sticks in my head. He looks like somebody. He looks like somebody. And I didn't really think about it. I never really put together who he looked like. Kind of thinking pro wrestling wise, like what other wrestler does he look like? Well, I found out who in my head he was reminding me of this week because I seen an advertisement for the original Halloween movie. I was a commercial that played that basically it's going to come on, I don't even know what channel. It might have even been on YouTube. It might have been something that popped up on a YouTube thing showing parts of the movie. I want to say it was a commercial. That's not the story. The original Halloween from the 70s with Michael Myers and all, there's a character in there named Dr. Loomis. And I'll be damned if as soon as I seen Dr. Loomis on the screen, it hit me right there. I was like, that's who J.R. Kratos reminds me of. It's been a long time, years since I've seen that movie. It's a great movie. If you want to watch a really good horror film, I would say that's probably my favorite horror film of all time. Some of the Universal films, like The Mummy and stuff like that from way back in the 1930s, I really enjoy too. I like that better than what like the newer stuff. I'm not a real big fan of the newer horror movies, like the paranormal movies and the ones with the doll, Annabelle. I forget what they're called. I'm not a real big fan of those. They all kind of feel like a paint by numbers kind of thing. They all feel similar. But I do love the original Halloween. I love the first three, actually most of Friday the 13th. There's a couple stinkers in the Friday the 13th series, but I like that genre. I like that slasher type genre. And I haven't yet watched the newest Halloween Kills, but the last two in the reboot series, which their timeline gets very convoluted, have been very good. And I know this isn't a movie review, but we are in the month where you would watch Halloween movies. So add that in a little bit. Definitely, if you've never seen the original Halloween, the original John Carpenter version, go back and check it out. It's definitely worth watching. Even if you're not too big of a fan of horror movies, it's a good movie in its own right. Now going from that, we go to our main event of the show, the Strong Openweight Championship, Fred Rosser defending against Chris Dickinson. We see how this came to be, how Dickinson attacked Rosser, hit him with a chair, challenged him for the match. I really love this match. It showed a different side of both wrestlers. Both were way more aggressive than they normally are. Both took it to each other in a way that I wasn't really expecting them to. And not to saying that I haven't seen this kind of style from the two. It's just that it was a little bit jarring how they ramped it up, and not jarring in a bad way. Like, it was like, oh, okay, I get where you guys are going. This is awesome. This was really good, and a lot of people will detract from it because of the ending of the match. It ended up in a double countout. I think that added to the story, in my opinion, because these guys so much wanted to hurt each other that they didn't give a crap about the ref counting to 20 while they were fighting outside of the ring. They continued to fight after the bell. I thought this was fantastic. By far my favorite match of the show. I'm giving this one a 5. I really am excited to see where this story, Rosser versus Dickinson, goes. The Rosser versus Tom Lawler story was great. That was a great piece of wrestling storytelling. And I feel like we're on the precipice of another great story involving Fred Rosser, who absolutely is a phenomenal wrestler. I really love his ascension in New Japan Strong and how he's become basically, if not the ace, one of the 2 or 3 aces of the company, with him and Tom Lawler obviously being the two champions to date. I would put both of them as kind of like the Okada Tanahashi of the company, where they're the 2 top guys, even though, most companies only have 1 top guy. Anyway, I digress. Like I said, this was an amazing match, giving it a 5. Overall, I'm going to give the show a 4. The first match, like I said, it felt like Gallows phoned it in. The tag match, I thought was a little bit underwhelming. I expected more of it. But the main event made up for it. The main event was of a quality that I'd expect from New Japan Strong. Which, again, I say it every week, it's my favorite weekly wrestling show. What do you guys think? Did you watch the show? Did you like it? Or did you have the same observations I did? Let me know down here in the comments. While you're there, make sure you subscribe, share, like the video. And if you made it all the way to the end here, let's put Dr. Loomis in the comments. Probably the only time we're going to mention Dr. Loomis, and probably one of the few times we'll mention a Loomis and it not be Dexter. So let's go ahead and put Dr. Loomis in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and this has been my review of New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong, episode 111.